What's up, everybody? Mike here, and in this video, I want to go over the biggest details revealed by the Elden Ring Shadow of Erdtree gameplay trailer that was shown off last week. I also got some extra, details for you. Miyazaki has an interview with Eurogamer, and they shed more light on some things. And I want to do a complete breakdown of the trailer here for you, so strap yourselves in. And before I go any further, it would be very much appreciated if you like the video and leave a comment as well too, as it helps out a lot for this channel, and I'm super thankful for it if you do. So first up, I want to talk about, some of the lore aspects of what the trailer showcases and a little bit of background on what's going on here with certain characters that maybe not everyone knows about or hasn't fully dived into. As seen in the trailer, Shadow of Erdtree follows the story of Miquella, Malenia's twin brother. Now, if you're not familiar with Malenia, she is basically the hardest boss in Elden Ring, my personal favorite boss, and so freaking cool. And there's a whole different side of lore to her in itself, but I won't be going into that today. But anyway, Miquella is the demon god offspring of Queen Marika and Radagon. The twins were born with a curse, with Miquella doomed to be eternally young and never grow to an adult. You will follow in Miquella's footsteps in the Land of Shadows area in the DLC, like you followed the Sites of Grace in the base game. The DLC area has been confirmed to occupy the same space as the Lands Between, but it has been physically disconnected. And it will involve a warp of sorts to get there, with that being speculation being, essentially that cocoon, basically, where you see the arm coming out. The story will also involve Queen Marika and what she did in this Shadow Land, and just what led Miquella to follow her to the Land of Shadow. Additionally, who seems to be the main antagonist, Mesmer, the man in red that you see in the trailer with the snakes around him and things like that, is an important figure who rivals other demigods in Shadow of the Erdtree. So he's definitely a key element and has a key element of Shadow to him. Now take note, understanding Miquella's past, might help us understand where the DLC story is going. It starts with Miquella wanted to become an adult. So it used the Haligtree, the late game legacy dungeon where players fight Malenia. He lay here in a cocoon, with the aim of growing older in parallel with the tree, buying himself by watering the tree with his blood. He intended for the Haligtree to grow into an Erdtree. But before he could complete his task, Miquella fell into a deep slumber. Miquella's cocoon is actually discovered in Elden Ring after defeating Mohg, Lord of Blood. Mohg stole the cocoon, morphed into blood, entered it, and attempted to commune with Miquella through his dreams. When we see the cocoon, Miquella's arm is visible, now adult size, but unresponsive. Now, this was mentioned in IGN's interview with Miyazaki as well, but pretty much the cocoon and arm you saw at the beginning of the trailer is basically the entry point to the Land of Shadow, where we're going to access the DLC. Miyazaki says this DLC is our largest expansion to date in terms of overall volume. And that's, I believe it, because if you already take the base game for what it is on a first playthrough, it's going to be 100 plus hours. For some people, probably 150 plus hours, because there's just so much to see, so much to do, and that's including if you're trying to destroy all the bosses, find all the bosses and wreck them, and things like that. And there's still stuff you're not going to unlock on the first playthrough, because I know I didn't. So I'd imagine that, with it being the $40 price point it is, that makes sense to me, because it's going to be an expansive amount of content, basically. I would imagine, probably 75% of the base game in terms of overall content that you're going to be able to do. Now, when it comes to the map size, I got a quote here from Miyazaki that he had with Eurogamer, where they asked him about it as well. It's hard to answer without giving away too much and to a high degree of accuracy. He goes on to say, but if you think in terms of scale or size, it's probably comparable, if not larger, than the area of Limgrave from the base game. So let's think about that, right? Let's think about that. So map size being comparable, if not larger, than the area of Limgrave. This might cause concern for some of you, but think about it. Limgrave overall is a massive region, including South Limgrave, with so much to do. So this, to me, makes sense for the recent size of the expansion. This is not supposed to be 2 or 4 regions big or a full size of the base game, because it's an expansion, not a sequel. Something to note also is sometimes interviews are wrong or misleading in early stages of pre-release and promotion stuff, like when they do interviews and other things to do for promotion. This is to help protect some information from being leaked out when it should not. So devs tend to be guarded about topics and what they can say. Often devs will underpromise, so when the game releases, it actually overdelivers. So keep in mind, with some things, even when confirmed in some way, take it with a grain of salt. Also, sometimes mistranslations do happen. Now, this is from the official website for Elden Ring Shadow Archery here. I want to talk more about, what they're saying themselves on the website when it comes to the world, exploring a familiar world full of new secrets. So Elden Ring Shadow Archery takes players beyond the lands between to explore the land of shadow, a completely new world from Elden Ring. Players can seamlessly travel back and forth between its vast maps, interspersed with diverse situations and meticulous dungeons where menacing enemies roam. So this is gonna be something you'll be able to go back and forth, from and within the game with ease, pretty much, as long as you get to the point where you defeat Mohg. And Mohg, honestly, is fairly late into the game anyway, so there is a way to get there early if you want to, but I don't recommend it because you're just gonna be underpowered unless you got enough skill level you think you can handle them. But it's honestly best, wait till you're strong enough with your build to take on Mohg and defeat him. Something that also might be misleading here is that Miyazaki confirms in this interview with Eurogamer that there are over 10 new boss fights. A few were glimpsed in the trailer. It's not clear yet which kind of bosses these are, such as if they are field bosses, main story bosses to the expansion, or optional, or mix of all those. I'm personally inclined to think this is meant to be serious boss fights, as Limgrave alone is 30-something boss encounters, including field bosses. So if Miyazaki is comparing the expansion to the size of Limgrave, then no way is it only just 10 or so bosses in there. Like, come on. The biggest game changer I'm most excited about is the 8 new weapon categories to be added to the game. This is a huge increase similar to Bloodborne, as there are currently 31 categories, and with 8 more, that means a 25.8% increase. And the website itself even kind of further teases what to kind of look forward to when it comes to weapons and more, right? If you look on here, a further deep in RPG, they're touting that, Shadow Archery adds new weapons, equipment, weapon skills, and magic not found in the base game, Elden Ring, along with new enemies, boss encounters, and plot lines to further increase players' RPG freedom. One thing that strikes me the most, though, is that the last line here at the bottom. Take on these threats with the new powers you can acquire. And you see an image here showcasing one of these new powers. And we don't, how that's going to work. We don't know. This obviously seems like it'll be something different than like how magic works or like how Ash of Wars work, which are basically weapon skills in the game. So this is going to offer up new powers, a new mechanic to utilize against enemies and bosses. Then if we stick to the numbers from Limgrave as a reference, it's possible we will get over 18 NPCs, 40 wildlife creatures and enemies, plus over 100 unique items, ashes, keys, magic, and equipment. To give you some perspective, the Artorias expansion from Dark Souls added 5 spells, 5 NPCs, 4 bosses, and 33 total mix of items, weapons, and armor. The thing I'm getting to and feeling is we will get a Bloodborne treatment of an area that is not vast in size versus total game, that has depth in content and mechanics that drastically change how you approach the feel about the total Elden Ring experience. Not only are we going to get stuff on the surface level of the region, right? You also got to think about underground stuff, right? And I don't just mean like caves and dungeons and legacy dungeons you go to, right? I'm talking about like underground areas, because Limgrave at least has one, if not a few, right? And then another part here in the interview with Eurogamer, Miyazaki explains, we want to provide these challenging encounters and these menacing threats, and in order to do that, we want to give the player a lot of freedom of approach. We wanted them to feel free in how they choose and when they choose to approach and tackle these hardships. Field and dungeon areas are more seamlessly interconnected as well too, which is going to be fantastic. Miyazaki says that in the DLC, we wanted to go more in depth and bring a denser and richer level design, which brings these types of layout together a little more seamlessly. There of course will be large open areas. There of course will be legacy dungeons, but we've also experimented with something a little more in between these as well to bring a more diverse gameplay experience, which I think he's referring to is the new powers you get essentially. And we all know Miyazaki loves his poison swamps, so poison swamps is going to be back. At least one is going to be in this expansion, so because it's Miyazaki. I mean, come on. So he goes on to say that poison swamps were actually a point of introspection for him after creating the base game. It was only after creating it that I realized I really like to create poison swamps. So maybe when players reach the poison swamp in the DLC, they will feel a little bit of this retrospection. I'm not sure it's anything close to retrospection I'll personally be feeling, but each to their own. Personally, I hate poison swamps, but I get it. I get it, Miyazaki. You know, it's your thing. It's one of your bread and butter things you got to add into these freaking Souls games, dude. I respect you for it. Now let's like recap and break down the trailer bit by bit here and go into further details of what is shown off. The first part of the trailer shows the character in Torrent speeding down the road, literally following Miquella's path as shown in the previous teaser art, where Miquella and Torrent navigate the same field. Areas littered by graves that we can assume are from the cleansing, and we see in the background what we all seem to call the Shadow Tree, a withered version of the Earth Tree from the base game that almost looks to be behind some kind of veil and might signal this area as being or zone or whatever, or even land like as some type of purgatory land. You also see some smoldering on the tree too. Your next tree to look at a new armor set, which we can presume we can get in the expansion somehow, and importantly, a symbol that looks like a crescent cross or star. This could be the DLC version of Guidance by Grace, but might also be a Great Rune, as it looks like a tweaked version of the Great Rune of the Unborn. Next scene depicts a different landscape with a red sky and sunset glow. Another new armor set and large sword with the armor dripped in fur, not unlike Blad's. This could be an NPC set. Further in, the sky has changed colors, and what looks to be another new armor set is shown here, looking extremely heavy and made of ceramic. It does remind me a bit of the Sentinels from the base game. It is holding a giant version of the fire pot, which we see later on in the trailer as a new throwable item. Then it gets more interesting as we see another possible new armor set with a white masked figure laying on a bed of flowers similar to what you see around Millennia. This seems to also be a new small environment reveal. The next room is filled with purple colored fire braziers and eerie blue candles. We see an NPC here wearing another possible armor set we can get as well. Then it moves to the Tarnished moving through a blighted swamp. Miyazaki does love his poison swamps, as I mentioned earlier, and said they return DLC, so this seems to be at least the poison area, swamp area, and probably the only one, I don't know. A portrait is then shown of depicting a couple with a woman touching her stomach and placing a hand on the man. It would be wise to assume this is the mother reference from the voiceover of the trailer, but there are other ways this could go, so it's not 100% certain. This could be Fia and her late husband, for example. As we continue, the Tarnished is seen exploring an underground area with large pots, potentially revealing where the pots are from and created. This might be a legacy dungeon or exploration dungeon in a new region, and a segue that took me to an interesting view that reminded me of Volcano Manor from the base game. A magma area with a large shame platform is seen. Since the theme of the DLC seems to deal with fire and cleansing, it's possible this is within or near the Shadow Tree, considering the smoldering on the tree as well. After that, we are shown an image of what is maybe one legacy dungeon of the DLC, a quite beautiful fortress with white walls and pillars, but the top looks to be disintegrating to ashes, likely due to the fading of the tree. Reinforcing the fire theme, a giant construct of fire reminiscent of the fire giant to me in some way stands up, and this is most likely an opening cutscene to this boss fight and includes large AoE fire attacks. More enemies are shown, including a nasty worm-like creature, an awesome boss with a pseudo-Chinese dragon using massive lightning attacks and death blight that kind of made me think of Wukong's trailer. The foot of this character looks similar to the foot of Margit from the base game, which may indicate this is maybe an omen or related to him in some way. The trailer then shows off the main antagonist, Mesmer, which I talked about earlier, who seems to summon fire magic that has some effect akin to blood, aka blood flame. It then transitions into an action scene showing off new dual-wielding weapons and new enemies in an underground area, showcased on a new dash move, seeming to be a new Ash of War. A nighttime scene is also shown, with a Tarnished using a new knife throwing skill and potentially a new paired weapon against an enemy that uses a large cleaver. The trailer then showcases an amazing full-blown animation of a new magic power, pink-colored and with lots of butterfly effect, which could mean it has a connection to Miquella it might be a mesmer magic. Next, we see full-on martial arts with some sort of skill, allowing a Tarnish to do flying kicks, Mortal Kombat style, against yet another new enemy type that's wielding a new twin blade. Then we can see a Tarnish using a new armor set and ranged weapon that fires several projectiles in fast succession. Some sort of new beast roar similar to dragon magic we know from the base game, but with a bear's head. Another area is revealed showing a samurai fighting what looks to be one of Millicent's sisters in a night field filled with blue flowers and fireflies. This is another armor set and weapon reveal, as both are not in the base game. Another boss is shown this time, a knight mounting a large boar using a purple lightning enchanted lance. This is a new kind of magic, not currently in the base game, and probably another armor set we can get in the DLC. Another boss is then shown looking like a large hippo beast, charging through shallow water and summoning large protective spikes around its head, before returning to an underground area with a suspicious environment showing a unique looking boss with a broken steed wielding a massive curved club thrown like a disc or boomerang. As the trailer nears its end, another possible boss is shown, a creature clad in aged yellow robes and impaled by golden shards, followed by more details on the right with Mesmer showcasing some of his moves. And this, to me, is hopefully the hardest boss in the DLC. I mean, I love challenge bosses in Millennia. Oh boy, she's my favorite for a reason. We can see a new weapon being used here, as well as a new winged ability that Crucible Knights are well known for, finally being implemented into the game, most likely used as an Ash of War or mysterious power that we touched upon earlier. The trailer closes off with a glimpse of Mikla standing before what we will call the Shadow Tree. So now you gotta think, what is next? I personally have a bunch of build videos currently on the channel right now, and I want to make more. You know, I'm always willing to take suggestions from you guys too when it comes to these builds. I like making builds in Elden Ring and other games too, so stay tuned for that. And you got to think, you know, how are we going to prepare for this? I'm currently doing an everyman type of build with a new character, just so I can get that ready for the DLC personally. So I'm just doing a new playthrough, and I'm just going to re-explore everything, get all the items, weapons I need, and stuff like that. Whereas my main character is still going to be used for build videos. And you got to think, you know, are you guys going to be using one of your current characters that's your like New Game Plus already to do the DLC, or are you going to start fresh? I'll probably do another video regarding that and how you should prepare for this DLC in more detail. But I hope this video was helpful to you and informative. If you did like it, please smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe if you're new. I had a lot of fun doing this, talking about this with you guys. My name is Mike. Thanks for watching.